Welcome back. Another episode of Talking Ball. It's Jack. We got Josh here with us today, and we're going to be doing some NBA season previews. Obviously, you guys clicked on this video. You know we're talking about the Knicks. Knicks are coming off of a 51-31 season, which was good for third in the Eastern Conference last season. They made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. Definitely some hurdles to get there. Maybe a missed call in the Pistons series, a couple of crazy comebacks in the Celtics series, and then they came up just a bit short getting to the finals against the Pacers. No shame in that, by the way. Pacers took the Thunder to 7. That was an awesome team. Now, in the offseason, we've had some changes. Most notable, head coach Tom Thibodeau, after taking the Knicks to their first conference finals in 25 years, was fired. That's your reward for doing something that hasn't been done in 25 years. Get out of town, Tom. And Mike Brown is in. Also, they brought in a couple of veterans who are very happy to be not on their teams of last season in Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabesele. So, Josh, what do you think? The Knicks are posed. They're the books have them at 53.5 as their win total. How do you feel about the Knicks, entering this season?
Yeah, I think they made some great moves. I think one of the biggest issues was your guys' lack of depth. I say your guys' because Jack is a Knicks fan. I want to say that. And definitely shored that up with some savvy moves, such as the two you mentioned. I think, especially with the East being in its current situation with Tatum out and Halliburton out, all hands in, just going for the title, that should be the goal. And if we had the pick between them, the Cavs, who were the one seed last year. You gotta feel pretty good about yourself. And then there's some couple unproven younger teams, the Magics with their big move, and some people say like Detroit, who gave you guys a little bit of trouble, so gotta throw them in there. I feel like you guys are definitely aiming for the chip this year, as you probably have been for the last couple of years, but definitely feels like a good goal to set this year.
It's it's not necessarily like championship or bust, but it's certainly finals or bust. Like you know,
It's getting close. How
it's
many
getting
how many
there.
more years with this roster do you guys have?
Probably a couple.
Probably a couple, yeah.
Yeah, before, but they're doing a really good job managing the aprons. Brock Aller,
Shout out to
Leon
Brunson.
Rose. Yeah, shout out to Brunson. Shout out to. No, it's not the same. I was gonna say Mikal Bridges, but he
He took
took
his
his money.
money.
He took his money.
Yeah,
The way Shams reported that one was like, oh, he did a no. He took his
no,
money.
he took his
He
money.
took
He
his
took
money.
his money.
Brunson was the one who took a pay cut. So
He
shout
did
out to
say he
this.
was going to do that, so kept his word.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, that's the captain for a reason. The guy who has completely changed Knicks basketball is Jalen Brunson. No question about it. But to your point, Josh, the Cavs, those younger teams. You mentioned the Magic, the Pistons. I would also throw in the Hawks as the younger contenders, and then do the Bucks or Sixers have healthy enough seasons to compete with the Knicks? Those would be the other two teams. In order, as you correctly put it out there, I'm a Knicks fan. In order, the teams that I'm like most worried about, I think at the top of my list would probably be the Cavs for sure. You got to give them their respect after what they did last season. Um, and then those three younger teams, the Magic, Pistons, Hawks, they're all in the same tier. I think I'm more concerned about the Pistons and Magic than the Hawks, just because the Hawks they still got to prove that they can be healthy and make it back to the playoffs, and there's a little more question marks there. But the Pistons and the Magic, they seem legit. The Magic sneakily have a very expensive roster. I don't know how long they're gonna be able to keep those guys together for, and they haven't had a run yet either. And the Pistons, I don't know if you saw it today, Josh, but Malik Beasley was cleared, so maybe they bring him back now
Oh,
on
my
a
man's
like a
free.
minimum. Yeah, yeah, they bring him back on a minimum. Feel bad for the guy. I lost a bunch of money, But then they got Beasley and Duncan Robinson. I don't know where he's going to end up, but it's just interesting. To those younger teams, I think, are the real ones that I'm a little bit more worried about in some ways than even like the Sixers or the Bucks for sure.
Yeah, definitely those teams with injury history, you don't have to worry too much about them. They have their own battles. Honestly, I think it's kind of interesting. I feel like the Magic are your best matchup because if you think about the Cavs, the Pistons, and the Hawks, well, all of them have crazy high offensive point guards, and one of them is not afraid of you guys, Trey Young. So, Cade played really, really well against you guys, and I think with Asar Thompson, he's a pest for Jalen Brunson. So I understand that concern. But I feel like for the Magic, they match up really well because you have OG and McCall. They're probably going to guard Paolo and Franz. And so Desmond Bain, you could probably hide. Well, Jalen Suggs or Desmond Bain, Brunson will probably hide on one of them. But I feel like if you were to pick, especially on the defensive end, one of those matchups, I feel like you guys would do better against the Magic, no?
It's more so about the Magic's defense that has given in regular season games has given the Knicks some issues in the past. Their size, their physicality. Um, but to your point, like being completely honest, I'm not going into a Magic series feeling worried. I would be feeling more worried probably in a Pistons or a Hawks series because of the two guys you mentioned, Cunningham and Trey Young. Trey Young for obvious reasons. We all know what those are. Cunningham,
Bad
I'm
blood.
telling you, if Cade Cunningham improves his dribble pull up 3-point shot because he didn't. That's the one thing. The two things he didn't do well, I should say, in the series against the Knicks, he couldn't. His 3-point shot failed him, and he turned the ball over quite a bit. And if he cleans those two things up, which I think are certainly possible, especially for a young guard going into the playoffs for the first time, those are areas where he can certainly improve upon. All of a sudden, because the gap of that series was very small and the margins were very slim. And so all of a sudden, they could shift towards the Pistons, especially with, as you said, Asar Thompson taking a step forward. Also throw in Ron Holland, Jaden Ivey coming back healthy. So there's a little bit more room for growth with the Pistons. But what I will say for the Knicks, I think a year, even though the coach is different, which doesn't help my argument, but I think a year of being together, a little bit more depth for them with Clarkson and Gershon Yabesele. We'll talk about them in a little bit. That could help them as well and make up for some of the improvements, the internal improvements that the Pistons I expect them to have. So I feel like this is a good time, Josh, to transition. We got a new coach. The Knicks have a new coach. Mike Brown is in. Tom Thibodeau is out. From an outsider's perspective, what do you think of that move?
Yeah, it's tough because he did, as you mentioned in the opening, brought you guys to the first finals. So I don't ever feel great about cutting a coach, especially after being successful. But that being said, he's been coaching for you guys, and I think at some point there's always time for change, especially this year when, you know, the Nuggets cut their coach in the playoffs and the Grizzlies, right? Well, that was the other one. They cut their coach as
Yeah,
well.
both teams just before the playoffs, like a couple of
Right,
days and
right.
like a couple of weeks in each case.
Yeah, so honestly, like timing wise, your guys' is not that crazy. But I think the worst part about it is kind of I would say, shit show that happened afterwards, where it was just like you guys were linked to every coach who was already coaching in the league and apparently denied. I don't know if that was rumors or not, but that I think was a bad look, in
Yeah,
my
I,
opinion.
I think I didn't. I saw it obviously differently, but I think Leon Rose, the GM and president of the Knicks, was just trying to find the best coach he could. And in hindsight, my interpretation was that they were talking to. This is my speculation. This is not facts. My
Mhm.
my guess is that they wanted Jason Kidd. I think that's who they
Yeah.
really wanted, and that they
Mhm.
talked to the other coaches kind of like as like a smokescreen to cover up for the fact that they really wanted Jason Kidd, but they couldn't get Jason Kidd, and so they talked to these other coaches. They got rejected. I think also part of what was going on is the other. They weren't necessarily, except for Udoka. the coaches didn't reject the Knicks, but the teams did, which is I think
Yeah.
important.
Mm.
Like Udoka didn't want to go coach for the Knicks. Don't blame him. He's got a really good young Rockets team. But like the Mavs didn't allow Kid to go talk with the Knicks. And then a few of these guys, Udoka, I think Billy Donovan, ended up getting contract extensions. So Leon Rose was doing a good thing, helping these guys get more money.
Yeah.
But getting Mike Brown. I mean, clearly it wasn't the first choice. I don't think he's better than Thibodeau. I don't. I don't think he's much worse. I just think he's different, and I think it's kind of funny because I've kind of forgot about this as being with his last stop with the Kings and how offensive minded they were. But going through his track record, he's a defensive minded coach, and so that kind of jives with Thibodeau. But he's a little bit more open minded, I would say, and he'll be more willing to work with other people, try out, let some of the younger players play. So we'll see. I think the first year should be good, but from Mike Brown's track record, things do kind of tend to deteriorate after that in his previous stops. So we'll see if he can, build off the first year. But honestly, it doesn't matter. The first year is this year. There's so much pressure on this year that who cares about the second year? It's all about this one.
Uh, I think there's the biggest difference is whether or not Mike Brown will go past the 8 or 9 man rotation, especially in the regular season, when I think that was a big issue this year. And you can say it's hindsight, but with like Mitchell Robinson missing a large chunk of time, and then Jalen Brunson, I think, had a couple weeks out with an injury, really needed to go into the bench and deeper into the roster. And it's tough to just throw out players in the time of need when they're just like all of a sudden like, hey, okay, now you're playing a bunch of minutes. Like definitely want to ease them in. And obviously there's like the youth development as well that wasn't really happening. But to be fair, there's only like 2 or 3 guys.
There's not much youth to develop.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys, and there maybe a little bit more this year. One thing I was listening to like a Kings podcast like crossover, and they were talking about Brown, and they said that you know at times during the season on the second night of a back to back, he would mix in that 11th, 12th guy on the roster, get him 15 minutes, so that way they were more engaged and ready just in case an injury does happen that they haven't been cold for the whole season. So that should be an improvement from that standpoint. And I'm glad you brought up the rotation because a big talking point this offseason has been the starting lineup for the Knicks and what direction they go in. And I know there's tends to be two camps from what I've heard, and neither one of those is go back to the starting lineup from last year, which I understand they did not do well statistically, especially once you got to 2025. They were like an average to slightly below average unit, which is really bad considering how many minutes they played, and kind of
Yeah.
remarkable considering how far they went, how bad that lineup was, or mediocre, I should say.
Mm.
So it's either going with the lineup that closed the season with Mitchell Robinson starting next to Carl Anthony Towns, I should say, or Miles McBride starting, which helps in two ways because it gets Mikal Bridges off of the on-ball point guard assignments and allows him to do what I think he's better at, guarding wings and being a little bit more off the ball. And well, I guess that's both of those things. And then the only thing is with that lineup, and I'm curious what you think, Josh. If McBride is in, the one concern I have is the rebounding as a group. Because if Robinson's in, you don't miss the rebounding from Hart. You're good. You've got Robinson. But
Mm.
if McBride's in, you do like who's gonna make up for that? Like Mikal's not a big rebounder. OG's not a great rebounder. It makes Towns have to do even more, and he was doing a lot of rebounding last year as it
Yeah.
was. So I'm not quite sure how that works, but I'm curious. Again, outside perspective, what do you think? What would you do?
Yeah, I think I would definitely go with the double big lineup, not only because that's where the league seems to be going. I think also there was a lot of success with OG dealing with the ball a lot more in the time of absence of Jalen Brunson. He had like a short stint where he was averaging like almost 30, like and close to triple doubles. And before he even joined, we knew that he had publicly stated he wanted a larger role, which is kind of confusing as to why he joined the Knicks, but that being a different talking point. So I think if you were to rely on him as your secondary ball handler, I think that would be kind of cover the basis for having, McBride. I do think the offense will struggle a little bit more just based off shooting because besides Brunson and you're having Robinson in there, you don't have like the best three-point shooting. But that being said, I mean, Mitchell Robinson is a one of the best in the league at offensive rebounding. I think that's been proven, especially in this playoffs. He looked amazing on the boards. So definitely will put pressure on the offensive glass. And I think you're just more solid on both sides of the court, especially now that you have the true rim protector and with Mitchell Robinson. He just really makes a big difference on both sides.
Yeah, huge difference. The only reason I don't want to start him is because I want to make sure he's ready for the
Yeah.
playoffs. That's
Yeah.
he. It's I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing that he does, um, to your point, it would enable OG to get on the ball more, and that's something I want to talk about a little bit more later. But as you said, OG had that stretch when Brunson was out where he was a terror offensively. And then with Robinson in, the other thing that was very apparent in the playoffs was Robinson is far and away the best pick and roll partner with Brunson, which is kind of a problem in the sense that you want that pick and roll, pick and pop to be with Towns, so you've got your two best players in it. But Robinson's screens are so much better, and that gives Brunson that little
Mhm.
extra room, and that's all he needs. He doesn't need much more than that. So yeah, I think, and apparently the Knicks front office, that's the direction they want to go as well. Is Robinson starting, which means one of the young guys. I think this year, whether it's any of the second year guys, Kolek, Dadier, Huckporty, McCullough, I think Huckporty, especially if they go double big, of those four, is by far and away the best position to get playing time. Because if you're
Mhm.
starting Robinson and you want to maintain some double big lineups, I mean, obviously they're going to play Sun with Towns at the five for sure, but
Or Yabusele.
or Yabusele, true. But if you want to maintain like a true five out there, I'm not saying Huckporty's going to play 20 minutes, but maybe he's your 10th guy and he gets 10 minutes. Also,
Just got to give him a chance.
gotta give him a chance. Also, you don't want to play Robinson more than 30 minutes. I honestly wouldn't want to play him more than 25. You want to
Yeah.
kind of keep him in this nice range. It was crazy to me. Thibodeau would leave him in for like quarter stretches at a time. And this was a guy who he didn't start playing until after the All Star break. So it's just like, that was the one thing he was better in shorter stretches. So yeah, I think Huckporty's best position to play. I thought he looked good last year for the Knicks, and he can give them backup center minutes. But I'm glad you brought up Yabesule because I think it's a good time. We could talk about the two additions. Because that's outside of the coach. These are the only two guys who I anticipate. We'll talk a little bit at the end here about who they could sign, but that'll be like bit real back end of the rotation guy, whatever they bring in last. But Clarkson and Yabesile, what'd you think, Josh, of bringing in those two guys?
I think those were positions of dire need. I mean, as I mentioned, super short rotation. Clarkson definitely helps because people were, I think, a little back and forth on McBride, especially when he was starting or out of the rotation. You know what you're getting with Clarkson, offensive firepower off the bench. And I think especially if you did want to start McBride, that's okay because now you have, like before it was just Josh Hart really running the show off the bench. But now at least you have another, probably a more reliable option just based off scoring, Clarkson. And then Yabusele, he's definitely, I think that was super underrated. He played a decent amount with the Sixers, especially with Embiid missing so much time. So that was a great signing. He can play probably 4 or 5. I don't know about the three, but like 4 or 5, small ball five. And yeah, it's just good backup for when Mitchell Robinson will miss time because it's bound to happen. But yeah, I think he two great additions.
Yeah, I think Clarkson to me more so it has nothing to do with McBride. I really like McBride. I think he's going to be very steady, continue to be really good. More so, he's the campaign replacement who was in and out of the rotation. It is kind of funny in retrospect that Piston series. The Knicks may not win without what campaign did in that fourth quarter when he went
Yeah,
absolutely crazy
bonkers.
crazy. But outside of that one game, that one quarter, really, he was not good for the Knicks in the playoffs specifically. He had moments during the regular season, don't get me wrong, but Clarkson's certainly an upgrade. And you have SLA is an upgrade over Precious Achua because he can shoot the ball, which I think is really important for the spacing. The one thing I will say, playing devil's advocate, is these guys are coming off of seasons where there was no pressure on them at all in the situations, the teams they were on. So can they perform in a market where there's going to be a lot of pressure on this team in roles where they're going to be has to be supportive and complementary players. And like for me, with Gershon, we don't have a track record because he hasn't been in the NBA outside of those 2 years with the Celtics when they weren't really winning. So we don't know. But with Clarkson, the one thing that comes to mind is when he got traded to the Cavs with that, I forgot if it was 2017, 2018, somewhere in that range with LeBron. I didn't think he played great, but I may be wrong in that situation. And that's a tough situation to go into. This is a little bit different, and he's got some experience to build off of here.
Yeah, I think remembering about that time, I think it was kind of tough because they had like a bunch of guards like him, where they were just a
Yes.
bunch of like scoring guards. So maybe the role wasn't there, and then I feel like here, yeah, that was he wasn't the greatest then, but I mean it's been like 6 years since then. I feel like he's kind of like settled into his role. I mean, there were always conversations about like him and Utah, where it was like Sexton, him, and some of their other younger guards, but nothing I heard he was too, he didn't really make seem like he made a big fuss about it. So I think he's someone at this point who kind of knows his role, and that's the kind of player you need for you guys. But Yuri Albert's point, I agree with. He's a little unproven.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't be like the strongest about him, but I mean, it's a replacement for Achua, so
Exactly. They're improvements over the guys that they had last year, so you gotta take it. And I had to look it up to see if I was right or not on Clarkson. Clarkson did play well in the regular season with the Cavs in the last 30 games or so when he got traded, but the playoffs were another story. He really struggled in the playoffs, which is probably where my memory comes from of
yeah.
Clarkson there. So, but he'll get another opportunity. He did play well with the Jazz when he was in the playoffs. So we'll see. This is going to be closer to the situation with LeBron than it is with the Jazz. But to your point, he's
Yeah.
had some time here. Um, all right. Last thing I want to bring up before we talk about the potential last signings is that a lot of people were on Mikal Bridges last season because he didn't play well, and I think rightfully so. By the way, based off of how much they gave up for him, what he had done in Brooklyn, etc., and his just general aversion to contact, which is a problem that's gotta improve this year. But what I will say in his defense is he went from being a guy who's the number one option to with especially when OG was playing the way he was the fourth option on the Knicks. And that's a tough adjustment. So I think having a summer, especially with a different coach, maybe some more offensive fluidity, a little bit less Brunson hero ball. But just save it for the fourth quarter. Don't get rid of it. Save it. Maybe that will help Mikal have a better second season with the Knicks.
Yeah, I think people kind of underestimate how much change is needed for your first year. I mean, I feel like it's pretty rare where someone gets traded in the first year, they're amazing. I mean, keep in mind, he was coming out of a terrible Brooklyn Nets team. And just to kind of like, in hindsight, I think it was so funny how much a market makes because he went from New York to New York, and then in the beginning of the season, I remember everyone's like, "Oh my God, look at his jumper," because he had that crazy like like he's
Yeah,
shooting
yeah,
like this, and I'm like, it's just crazy because all of a sudden people were like talking about it, even though he was literally in the same city last year and no one really cared. And I think they were trying to like correlate it to some of his early struggles. And then there's also like the whole buy first round picks aspect of it all. So, I mean, that just comes with playing for a bigger market. And I think that's just a perfect example of when, like, how much of a difference it makes. But as your point saying, I think he'll be great. First year transitions, I think, don't always go smoothly. I mean, Damian Lillard with the Bucks, great example. So second year, getting to know the team and getting to know his role, I'm sure he'll have a better year. I mean, I think the best improvement would just be looking at efficiency. I don't think necessarily we'll be expecting
right.
larger outputs on the metric side, but just if he gets more efficient and then maybe all defense done, 13 would
Could he
be
get
good.
back? Could he get back to being an all defense type
Yeah.
player? That's the thing. That's the question. So, final roster spots. Um, the Knicks have two spots and there are two ways available. They can sign a player for the veteran minimum, and they can sign a second round rookie exception. So I'll take the last spot. They're going to look to sign either Mohamed Diawara, who was their second round pick, 51st pick in this year's draft, if I remember correctly, who looked good in summer league, showed some promise as a 6'9", 6'10" guy who could dribble the ball, pass pretty well, defend, couldn't shoot yet, but could do a bunch of other things, and is friends or has the same agent as Yabesole, knows Pacom Dadier, so they're building the French Knicks to go along with the Nova Knicks, and that way you've got different factors in the locker room. Or it's going to be James Nagy, the center they acquired as part of the transactions in the Cat trade, who was playing, I think it was for Barcelona. Um, one of them will be the second round exception. The other is going to be the two-way deal. Now, Josh, these veteran men, the last veteran men spot, I think is interesting. There's a bunch of directions they could go. Where do you think they should go?
So I think it's one of two ways, either a guard or a center. And as you mentioned, like Hook Party or Najee, two potential centers. If they weren't to go that way, I think Trey Lyles is a great option. I think he's a really underrated backup big, and he's got the size, which you don't really get with Yabusele. Other than that, I think there are some good guard options. I think Malcolm Brogdon, a lot of teams will be going for. I don't necessarily know if that's the kind of guy you would want to go for because I think you should go for a more defensive option. Although Brogdon's not like a terrible defender, just he's not. Um, Depending on if Gary Payton resigns or not with the Golden State Warriors, which is highly likely. If he doesn't, I think a bigger defensive to a guard, like a combo guard, would be great. Take some ball pressure off, just in case McBride wants to do more offensive scoring. But yeah, I think those are two great options. And I think Loki, like if you wanted a wing, Amir Coffee would be really good. I know people
He
talk about him as
he
being.
signed with the Bucks recently.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
good signing for the Bucks. They need
yeah.
some. They need more depth. They need more depth. Or I think bringing back Wright would be a good option as well.
Yeah, I think it's DeLon Wright or Landry Shamet. I mean, they're not sexy signings, but DeLon Wright, you know what you're going to get from each one, and they can add something. DeLon Wright can be a defensive guard off your bench, and Landry Shamet can give you like a true sniper. A real 3 point shooting threat that the Knicks, honestly, they just don't have that type of player. They don't have either type of player really on their roster. A high volume 3 point shooting guard or a like defensive specialist bench kind of guy. Like McBride's kind of like in between both of those, and they could go for one more so than the other. At the end of the day, hopefully everyone's healthy. This really shouldn't matter too much, but it will be nice to have, for the regular season, if somebody gets banged up, has to miss a few weeks, you have another body to go with. So Any final thoughts, Josh, before we wrap up? Other than like, share, comment, subscribe.
Let's guess their actual win total.
Ooh, okay, all right.
53 and a half is the line. I think when we both talked before, we both like the over,
Yes.
but it's a question of what's the exact number.
Who goes first? Well, you had the question, so I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
Let me know when you have your number ready, so I don't influence you though, because I got mine.
I have my number ready.
Okay. All right. When you said that, the number that popped in my head was 57.
I'm closer to 55. I think just because there'll be a couple more games where, their starting lineup may have more rest. I think that's kind of the appeal of having Mike Brown in. So, you know, not the team with the biggest depth in the league. And I think depth really helps in the regular season, but we're both over. I think we're not that far off.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's more so that I just think there's going to be wins to be had in the East.
Yeah, yeah,
And they won
for sure.
51 last year. I think they are deeper this year. The question is, though, going against that, they were very healthy with outside of Robinson last season,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Brunson missing that month or so. If they can, I don't know if they can be as healthy this year.
Okay, so then that being said, so I said 55, you said 57. How many games does Mitchell Robinson play this year?
Ooh, that's even
You can
better.
look. Do you want me to read his games played, or do you know the numbers?
Just last year, I feel like he played in 20. Is that right?
17.
Not even. Okay.
17.
Oh, man.
And the year before?
The year before, I know he missed it. He started off good and he missed a chunk of time. Probably like 34.
31. You're really close.
Okay, okay.
So 17, 31, 59, 72, 31, and then
He played in
66, 61 and
72?
66. So
Wow.
yeah, in
Yeah, that
21, 22. Yeah.
that was a good year.
Statistically, he's
Is
due for a good year. 60 plus
yeah.
games
Yeah, they could
statistically.
yeah. Um I'm not going to say that though.
No, you're not gonna put that you're not
No,
gonna put that
no,
number down.
no, no,
No,
no,
no,
no.
no.
I'm going to go with 45. 45
I was
games.
gonna say 45. I was just about to say
Yeah.
45. Yeah, 50%. I feel like it's a good number. 40, well, it's a little over, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, honestly, and that's part of the reason why I think like if it's not Shamit or Bright, I think your idea of Trey Lyles makes sense. Even though he's a very different type of big, just to increase the depth in that spot because I if we get half a season from it, all that matters for Mitchell Robinson is that he's healthy once they get to the playoffs. It does the
Yeah,
rest
for
does
sure.
not matter. It just does not matter.
It's like they should put him on the prime Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis role where they
Yeah.
were playing like every
Yeah.
other game and staggering each other.
No back to backs. Don't play him more
No
than
back to
25
backs.
minutes. And it's crazy because he is for in the modern NBA for a guy who can't shoot, can't really dribble, not a passer, because of his ability to rebound the ball and defend, he was like one of the best players on the court in several playoff games. Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if he gets hurt in fucking December and he can't play. So just whatever, put him in bubble wrap. I'll see him after the All Star
Keep it on
break.
ice.
Yeah, yeah. There's no need.
Yeah.
There's no need. So
45 would be a good amount, I think.
it'd be good to get some chemistry. That's the
He's
thing.
going into the season healthy, right? There's no injuries I
Yeah.
don't know about.
Well, I mean, there could be ones that I don't know about. I guess, in fairness, but as far as we know, yeah. And that was the thing, though. Him and Cat, I think, had played like less than 50 minutes together before the playoffs or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they started playing a lot together. So it was like now some of that was on Tibbs because Robinson had been back for 17 games, but 17 games is also not a lot of time.
Yeah, he was
Uh,
averaging 17 minutes per game
yeah,
during those
yeah.
games.
There wasn't a lot of time for Thibodeau to experiment with there.
Yeah.
Especially because, as you said, he's playing 17 minutes, and you have to have one of him or Towns on the court at all times. So there's not a whole lot of time in between to pair them together. So yeah, should be a fun season. But it's a weird spot as a Knicks fan for the first time in for the first time period. Honestly, the regular season just doesn't matter, which is really weird.
Yeah. Especially in this East.
Yeah, especially in this East. Yeah, they
Did you
can
know in
win
the 20
70 games. I don't care.
doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean
You
anything.
guys need to make the finals at least.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my opinion. You guys need to make the finals at
I
least.
would rather them win 45 games and make the finals than win 70 and not make the finals.
Pull Indiana or Pacers. Who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah. Who cares?
You know, in 23-24, so not last season, but the season before, he averaged more offensive rebounds than defensive rebounds. 4.6 versus 3.9. That's crazy. I mean, how many players in the
4.6
league do you
is
think?
crazy, honestly.
Yeah, versus 3.9. I mean, in 25 minutes per game. Oh my
That's what I was going to
God.
ask you next. I was going to ask how many minutes that was in.
Per 36, that's probably like closer to 7 or 8. That's, oh my God.
The
Or 6 or 7,
Pacers,
something like that.
the Pacers literally took Tony Bradley off the back of their bench because they're like, we can't do anything with Robinson. We got to play somebody else. And he wasn't
Yeah.
terrible, but yeah. And the Celtics were doing Hacker Robinson. He just changed games. What's
Especially
funny?
that one game where he made all his free throws.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
That's
I think,
crazy. That was
and I
crazy.
think the Knicks lost that game too. I think that was game 3, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
But you want to know what's funny looking back on it? He had a big impact on the Pacers series, big impact on the Celtics series. Maybe I'm just not remembering correctly. I just don't remember that same impact in that Pistons series.
Yeah, probably a much better defensive rebounding team, especially with Jalen Duren,
Duran, I was thinking that too. I was thinking that.
because the other two teams don't really have that like elite
Physical,
rebounder. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
makes me
yeah.
wonder how
Okay,
you guys would have done against OKC. They don't really have an elite rebounder either.
yeah. Hartenstein.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, but
Hartenstein would.
he only played like 20 minutes off the bench.
Yeah, they would have had to play him more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll
Hey,
see.
he shot 68% from the line last year, career high.
I remember seeing some Instagram video of him or something, some post after they lost, and it was like
Yeah.
he took a lot of blame for it, and I was like, dude, you're the one person who should take none of the blame. It was just like,
Yeah.
but he was like, and then like a few days later, it was him shooting free throws.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They were bad. They were really bad. Hey, buy your Mitchell Robinson stock here. We'll buy your Mitchell Robinson stock. We'll take it.
Far and away the longest tenured Nick, fan fan
Yeah,
favorite, fan favorite.
true.
One of my favorites for sure. Um,
Homegrown, drafted by you guys.
yep, yep, yeah. So, all right. Yeah, I guess with that, Josh, we'll wrap it up. We'll see you guys next time. We'll be doing the Trailblazers next, Josh's team, and
Yes, let's go.
we'll poke and prod and get Josh's true feelings on how the Blazers offseason has gone and how he feels about the direction of the team. Which would be that should be a fun one. That should be a fun one.
I'll be very animated. I'll be even more emotional than this segment. So,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, see you guys. See you, Josh.
you guys.